Today, we're going to talk about a really powerful idea from Buddhist philosophy. It's this concept of an invisible net that kind of keeps us feeling stuck, right? Like we're always chasing a happiness that feels just out of reach. So let's try to unravel it together.
I mean, really, think about it. Have you ever had that feeling of being caught in a loop? You pursue something you think will finally make you happy, but when you get it, you find yourself right back where you started, still wanting more. It's this universal feeling of just being tangled up. You know, this isn't a new idea. More than 2,000 years ago, the Buddha used this really vivid metaphor to describe this exact feeling. He talked about a net, one that's sticky and huge, and it just ensnares the entire world, preventing us from finding any real, lasting peace. That net is exactly what we're exploring today.
So, okay, if we're all caught in this net, what's it actually made of? Well, according to the Buddha, the threads of this net have a specific name. It's called taṇhā, which basically translates to craving or thirst. And this, right here, is the engine that drives all our restlessness.
All right, let's dive into this a little deeper. Taṇhā isn't just, wanting a new phone or a slice of pizza. It's a much deeper, more fundamental force. And the Buddha actually broke down its activity into two main categories, which is super helpful for us to see exactly how this net is woven around us.
So the first of these two big categories is what the teaching calls internal craving. This is all the stuff that's directed inward. It's about our obsession with our own sense of self, our I. Let's see how that works.
This is basically that voice in your head, right? The one that's constantly defining and redefining who you are. It's a non-stop commentary on your identity, and it's one of the main threads that make up this net.
Just think about how often this thought pops into your head. I am smart, or I am a failure, or I am a good person. Every single one of these statements is an act of trying to create a solid identity, a craving to be a fixed, definable me.
And then, of course, there's the future. I will be successful, or I will be happy when. This constant projecting into the future, this craving for some future version of ourselves, it keeps us trapped in this state of always becoming something instead of just being content with who we are right now.
Now, what's so fascinating is that even negative self-talk is a thread in the net. Thoughts like, I am not good enough, or I am not like them, those also define us, right? They create a fixed identity based on what we think we lack. It's still a really powerful attachment to this idea of me.
Okay, so that's the internal stuff. Now let's move on to the second type of craving and see how this whole thing gets even bigger. This one is all about how we look to the world around us to tell us who we are.
This is when we tie our sense of self-worth, and sometimes our whole existence, to things outside of ourselves. It could be our job, our relationships, the stuff we own, or our status on social media.
So the thinking goes something like this. Because I have this fancy job, I am important. Or because this person likes me, I am worthy. We let all these external things dictate our internal state. And the problem is our identity becomes super fragile, totally dependent on things we ultimately can't control.
And just like with the internal stuff, we do the same thing with the future. Once I get that promotion, I will be secure. When I finally own that house, then I will be happy. We're constantly pinning our future salvation on getting something external, just weaving another layer into the net.
So we've got these two major ways we crave, internally and externally. But the Buddha's analysis goes even deeper. And this is where you start to see just how huge and complicated this net really is.
So the original texts get incredibly specific here. They break down our inner world into 6 senses, like sight, sound, and even thought itself. And then they analyze how craving attaches to each one. This gives us 18 distinct forms of internal craving. And you guessed it, they do the exact same thing for the external world, giving us another 18. So that's a base of 36 ways we get ourselves tangled up. But we're not done yet.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The crucial insight is that these 36 activities aren't just happening to us right now. We've been doing this stuff our entire lives, and we project it all into our future. So the Buddha applied these activities across 3 different time frames: the past, the present, and the future.
So what happens when you take those 36 ways we get entangled and you multiply them by the 3 dimensions of time that they operate in? What do you think that gives us?
108. This is exactly why the number 108 is so significant in so many Eastern traditions. It represents the 108 defilements or worldly desires.
Basically, the total number of threads in this vast, sticky net of craving that traps us. It's this powerful symbol for just how complex our own minds really are.
I know, seeing the sheer scale of the problem, 108 different ways we entangle ourselves, it can feel a little overwhelming, right? But believe it or not, understanding the structure of the net is actually the very first step to finding a way out. So, what is the path to freedom?
Well, the answer isn't to just fight the net harder or to try and cut the threads with brute force. The path forward, according to the teaching, is actually much more subtle and way more profound.
See, the way out isn't to fight the net, but to understand it. It starts with just recognizing the true nature of craving when it pops up. Then you can start to see really clearly how this attachment is the actual root of your suffering. The teaching suggests that the simple act of awareness, of seeing the threads for what they are, is the first and most powerful step toward liberation. It's not about destroying desire, but seeing through it so it no longer controls you.
And that really brings us to the final crucial question. Now that you can kind of see the pattern, take a moment to look at your own life. What are the main threads, those internal and external cravings that make up your personal net? Because just recognizing them, that's the first step to becoming free.